Hola, buenas tardes. Yo soy Alexandre Belnet, profesor de MBCR para el programa Remind de la Universidad de Barcelona. Tenemos la suerte de hablar con Jon Kabat-Zinn hoy y hacerle unas preguntas. Yes, Jon, according to you, why MBSR program has been so successful? What makes it so effective for you?
I think that for a number of reasons which we could discuss, MBSR speaks to the final common pathway of what makes us human. Yeah. So people feel touched to cultivate mindfulness because it helps us all to feel like we're more in contact with who we really are and not with the narrative we tell ourselves about how insufficient we are or how great we are. And this has a kind of profound authenticity to it that feels meaningful in a profoundly embodied way. So it makes for all sorts of possibilities and is fundamentally optimistic and healthy. That's why I think it touches people so deeply. Now, why it's exploded, interest in mindfulness and MBSR has exploded in the world, well, that's driven by a lot of complex elements, one of which is that we are really talking about ancient wisdom here that goes under the name of Dharma, a kind of deep understanding of the natural lawfulness of the universe. The Chinese might call it Tao. It's not merely Buddhist, although Dharma is used to describe the Buddhist teachings, but it has this more universal element that still includes the Buddhist teachings. So we're talking about deep wisdom that's kind of our genetic inheritance in a certain way. So I think we need deep wisdom at this particular moment in time on the planet, so perhaps that's one thing. The other thing is that for the past 37 years, I've been really attempting to study the effects of mindfulness in the hospital, MBSR in particular, on people with chronic medical conditions and stress and pain and so forth. And what we've done is actually develop the science of mindfulness that's gone way beyond just the Center for Mindfulness. And now many, many neuroscientists are actually studying meditative practices, mostly mindfulness and compassion. And the results are so exciting at the level of neuroplasticity, genomics, and epigenetics, at the level of telomeres, and at the level of, within the neuroplasticity changes, the level of functional connectivity, how rapidly the brain changes, increases in gray matter density and so forth with meditation practice. It's like the science is driving the interest because it doesn't feel like it's just some philosophy or some ancient meditative practice that everybody's now enamored by, but for no reason. The science makes it very, very difficult to just dismiss it as superstition.
Yeah. Yes, Jon, mindfulness is, as I think you say it so often, is before everything, is heartfulness. In relation with heartfulness, would you say that, according to you, that compassion, kindness and love are the same thing, or is it so different?
When they're words, they're different. When they're when they're embodied, they're pretty much the same thing. If the love is not caught in self-centeredness, that's the kind of love I'm talking about. Not like I want this, I'm in love with you as long as you're in love with me, or even romantic love, because there's a certain diluted element to it, and it does, I mean, wonderful as it is, and so this is about a kind of love that's really embodied, and it is Mathieu Ricard would call it non-referential compassion. It's not personal. You're not personal, and your love is not personal. So then, like say the Pope, it would be everybody, or he seems to like just love everybody. His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, he doesn't differentiate between the high and the low, the important people and the not important people. There's no such thing as not important people, but in your mind. So we're talking about wisdom here. Kindness or compassion without wisdom is not really either compassionate or wise. So there's a certain way in which we need to continually nurture our capacity for seeing self in other, seeing other people's suffering as our own, and recognizing that when we honor that in other people, we are in some sense there for them, and they feel better even if we can't fix or change their situation. And that sense of deep connection is itself profoundly healing and leads to a certain kind of wisdom that doesn't come otherwise. So these are all, in some sense, the benefits of mindfulness practice. But I want to emphasize that when we practice mindfulness, we're not actually practicing it to gain any benefits. We're not trying to get some special mindful state. There's no such thing. Okay, we're not trying to get rid of our thoughts and make our mind still. We're learning how to inhabit the space of our own heartfulness, mindfulness, awareness. Let everything be exactly as it is, not take any of it personally, and then act in ways that optimize kindness and well-being and minimize selfishness, self-centeredness, and harm. It's not that big a deal. It's just the hardest thing in the world to make a consistent organizing principle of your life. And then your life becomes the meditation practice. There's no separation, but your life is also, you're all teachers, right? Yeah. So what a teacher does, if I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I've never said that, but what a teacher does, I think, is you use your own body and your own life and your own voice and your own love for learning to ignite passion in others for the same investigation. It's not like you're going to download what you know into my mind or your students' minds. They're going to find their own understanding of the world. They're going to develop their own sources of information, bring that information into the domain of knowledge. So it's not just information, but there's some kind of knowledge which leads to understanding. And even understanding, who cares unless it leads to some kind of wise action, so wisdom. So this is a kind of arc or trajectory where we all use our being to, in some sense, inspire our students to love, to experiment or explore or to learn. And to practice that. Some of this is not so easy. It's hard to remember things. It's hard to remember neuroscience, facts, or even organic chemistry. People have a hard time with it. But if you understand the beauty inside it, then any kind of learning, in my view, is a love affair. And so in a sense, what a professor or a teacher does is it's like your love is transmitted to your students to actually pay attention, because it's beautiful to pay attention. And you see things that you won't see unless you learn how to pay attention. And then not just get too caught up in thinking, because there are multiple intelligences at work: emotional intelligence, somatic intelligence, cognitive intelligence, intuitive intelligence, and social intelligence, and really, if you will, in some other way, sort of transcendent intelligence, that when all of these things, they're already native to us, they're our default mode. When we actually resonate with them, well, then we become, in some sense, educated or learned or functional human beings who can navigate the ups and downs of the world and love what is known, and also even more, love what is not known and investigate it.